Hello, welcome to I Think You Think. July 8th, 2013, we're going to be talking about ebooks, both the future of and what we think about them and what you think about them. Then, there we go. All right. You are listening to I Think You Think, a podcast that puts a new spin on debate and discussion. I'm Justin, and on the other side of my computer screen is James.
Howdy, folks.
And Sequoia.
Hi.
And we are your hosts and carry no credentials worth noting. I Think You Think is a podcast that focuses on what we, your hosts, think, but also what you think. Too many times we spend debates and discussions talking past one another and not enough time trying to learn and understand why someone thinks what they think. This is what makes I Think You Think different, because we are focused on why people think the way that they do and why we think the way that we do. James, Sequoia, and I believe that the forum of ideas should be open to everyone, and everyone should have the opportunity to challenge and be challenged by ideas. I don't know if we've actually ever run that by Sequoia to make sure that she does agree with that. Sequoia?
Yeah.
Now, okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
Signed all those contracts that we have because there's a lot of legal paperwork involved in this. So she agrees now whether she agrees or not.
Yeah.
She's legally bound to agree.
But this podcast is a podcast. It is a podcast. First and foremost, it's a podcast. Just in case you were wondering, it's also a conversation between the three of us and hopefully you. Feel free to email us, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and at the Chicago Now blogs. The links for each of these can be found in the underbar of the video. But if you want to write fast, I know that joke's getting getting funny. Yep.
If you haven't written it down already,
I attribute my talking funny to this. Thank you. So, not an I drink, you drink, but I felt like drinking. Facebook.com/I think.youthink, ChicagoNow.com/I-think-you-think, and on Twitter at I think_you-think. You can also email us at ithinkyoutthink2012@gmail.com. We should probably update that, except all of our pictures say the other thing. Well. That's our email address.
It's our birth year, so
yeah, it's the year that we started. So
yeah, we're 7 months in now, so I think changing would be silly.
Yeah. I agree. It would be silly. So we're talking about ebooks and the future of ebooks, what we think about ebooks, and then any other kind of science and techie type stuff that we have come across this past week and that struck a chord with us. But before we get into that, we always like to kind of talk a little bit about what sort of things have been sapping our life this week. So you know what, James? I think you let us off last week. So Sequoia, why don't you tell us what has been sapping your life this week?
Actually, a lot of Sherlock. The one with Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm completely addicted. Even though there's only like 6 episodes, but they're like an hour and a half long. So I've been watching that. Oh, it's so good. I finished the last episode finally, and I went back and started it over again because I was like, "There's only 6 episodes. That's permissible." Yeah, I think it might be the new Supernatural.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much what's been eating up my life.
It's an awesome show, and they just started filming the 3rd season.
Actually, they were filming the 3rd season. I think they were filming the 3rd season while my wife and I were in Wales.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I believe that one of the nights, actually the night that I was trying to drop off the rental car that we had borrowed, I couldn't take the road that I needed to drop the car off because of the fact that they had this whole area closed off, and I'm pretty sure it was because they were filming for the newest season.
I wonder if maybe that means it's broadcasting, because my mom is a big fan too, and I thought she had said they had started filming it, but maybe it's starting soon on actual BBC.
I don't think it's actually coming out until fall, because I know like Supernatural is coming back, and then Sherlock is coming back, and then I believe Doctor Who is coming back, like all around the same time. So.
Oh, what are you gonna do?
I'm gonna quit my job. Actually,
they might have been filming for Doctor Who, but I was pretty sure that my wife had said that it was for. Because all of those shows pretty much film in Cardiff, because that's one of the BBC's areas for filming. That's why a lot That's why things like Torchwood and stuff actually took place in Cardiff, because it was very cheap to do it. You just go outside your door to film.
Yeah. Well, either way, it's coming. It's a great show.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got to watch it, Sequoia. Luther, we should put that next for BBC.
Luther?
Luther.
Okay.
Very good.
Is it on Netflix?
Not the same. Yeah, it is. It was last time. That's where I watched it. But that's also too.
Okay.
Anyways, that sucked up all of our times, actually. That was amazing, and we made it happen to everyone who's listening.
All right, James. So what has been sucking up your life?
State of Decay, and then more State of Decay.
You got it because of a really good review you heard, right?
I did, and I was told that it was worth $20, and that is completely true. It is. We were talking about this in the pre-show a little bit. $1 an hour is kind of my line for entertainment of that kind of sort, and I've probably already crossed over the 20 hours. So, anything where you can really enjoy yourself for $1 an hour in digital media, thumbs up, people.
There you go.
What about you, Justin?
Well, I've been playing State of Decay as well. Probably not quite as excessively as you have, because at work right now, obviously we just had a holiday, July 4th, kind of busy in the retail world. I don't know how busy it is for you in like the restaurant business, but
on the day, if it's raining, it's busy. Otherwise, it's dead.
Okay, all right, fair enough. But we were very busy, and then we are actually setting our back to school promo aisle this week. So even though I'm scheduled to have Wednesday and Thursday off, I'll actually probably have to be going into work those days to actually get it set, because next week we have to do inventory.
Good times.
So, yeah, you're right. Yeah. So, but yeah, my brother and I started playing through Resident Evil 5 again. I don't know if I had said that last week.
Yeah, I think you had mentioned it.
Yeah, so we're still playing through that. I finally got unlimited ammo back, so I'm...
Well, congratulations.
Thanks. You know, it's the little things that count.
It's true.
So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I've had a rather kind of dull life-sappingness. But, by the way, Undead Labs, State of Decay, you need to make multiplayer, like yesterday, as soon as possible.
They announced they can't, because I'd have to rework the entire game.
Yeah, I know, I heard that too, but I was trying to hope that it wasn't true.
Yeah.
I think that they're supposed to be coming out with another, maybe the second one, or something.
I think they got some
similar
DLC coming or something.
Yeah, I hope so, because the game is short.
It is, and it gets a little repetitive with the stuff you're doing, but it's still fun even within that. You know, it's like a little mini sandbox game. But yeah, I hope to see more from Undead Labs, and whatever their next project is, they definitely have my attention. And they'll probably get
well, with a name like Undead Labs, it's going to have to be a zombie game.
Could it be a vampire game?
A vampire game, I suppose, or ghosts or something too.
What about mummies?
What? Monkeys.
Yes. Undead Monkeys. Undead Monkey Island. That's the new one.
Actually, I would play that. I love the Monkey Island games. Undead Monkey Island sounds even better.
What about Poltergeist, where you come in, you like hack into someone's Sims world and you mess up, turn lights on and off, and never mind. Anyway.
Okay, moving on. So, this is sort of tech related, but not as much as some of the other stuff we're going to get into. But I feel like it's worth mentioning. There was a plane crash actually just this last weekend, Asiana flight that actually from what I've kind of the research that I've done on it. They didn't know obviously originally what kind of happened, but evidently the plane was coming in too slow. Hit the a barrier wall before the
runway.
The actual runway, yeah, and then ended up like the tail came off and the plane like flipped through the air and crashed on, But the amazing thing, and I mean, I don't want to minimize what happened, but the amazing thing is that only 2 people were killed. There were some that were pretty badly injured. That are still in critical condition. The last I had heard, their spines and stuff had been broken or snapped. But I mean, it's amazing that that, I mean, to me, I've always thought, okay, a plane crash and it's over. You know, everybody on there is going to die, but basically everyone but a handful actually survived. So, yeah.
Safety technology. I mean, it only gets better and better. I mean, you hope that stuff never happens, but it's nice to know that they are designing these planes so that they, you know, it is more likely that people will survive when this awful happens.
Yeah, and they said that the Boeing 777 never has mechanical failures. Like, it's one of the safest planes. There's never been a problem with it mechanically. And that's why some people jumped right to the conclusion, well, it was pilot error. I still don't think that they've ruled out the fact that it was pilot error, but it seems to be that the pilot who was actually landing the plane, I had read that he only had like 44 hours of flight time on this type of plane. That he was a seasoned veteran, but he hadn't flown this type of plane as much. And there was a pilot who I'd listened to on NPR who was talking about that these long haul flights, like these 10, 12-hour flights, are actually not as draining as flights that are like 45 minutes long, where you're up and you're down and you're running like 4 or 5 trips a day in and out of some of the busiest airports in the world. The long haul flights where you have 2 and 3 backup crews, like 2 and 3 backup pilots and things like that, and they work in shifts, are actually easier or less stressful than some of the smaller ones. So,
well, yeah, most of the time it's just got to be like riding on a plane, you know, because with autopilot and things like that, once you get up there and you're at the right height and at the right, you know, velocity.
Yeah, he was saying that, I mean, autopilot is, I mean, it doesn't fly the plane in the sense that it controls where the plane goes, but you actually are still setting the dials and the numbers and saying, okay, turn the plane to this degree or whatever, and it does it. And those are all based on, you know, satellite tracking and these fancy little radar things that we have that tell planes basically the highway that they should fly on, based on where they're going and how far they're flying and where they have to land and everything like that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, that was the other thing that they had mentioned, is that the San Francisco airport, there's 2 systems that aid pilots in landing, and both of those systems were down or off or something like that. And so they were saying that might have also contributed to it.
Yeah.
So there you go. You know, if you know, our hearts, our feelings go out to all of those who were affected by that crash, and you know, if any of our listeners pray, if that's what you want to do, by all means do so. I haven't heard anything about ways to donate, but I mean, they don't normally do anything like that for this type of stuff. So
yeah, and I mean, because the company will have to take responsibility,
right,
for the medical bills, and then whatever they follow through for those that perish.
So there you go. I did want to mention that, but let's go ahead and move on to
Ebooks.
Ebooks. So James, you have a couple of articles because you actually did your homework.
I did. But I thought we'd start with general conversation because these are more about, well, you know, actually one of them might pertain. Well, hold on. Let me get it open. I didn't actually have it open at the moment. But I did get them from my tablet to my laptop here, so I can get to them easily like that. So, I am on, I use my tablet now as opposed to a Kindle, but before that, I had a Kindle Fire, and before that, I had like 3 different Kindles over time, all of which I have donated to other people when I was done with them because I think they're awesome. So the first article that I had found that really sort of caught my eye was on the Denver Post, and 10 Ways Digital Books Are Changing Our Literary Lives. So now print books you can find, okay, so hold on, it's weird, guys, so switch over here. But when I first read it, I was like, this is neat. I really like the fact that I have, you know, this piece of technology. I love technology, so it's kind of fun. But I thought that one of the best reasons to have a Kindle is if you're someone who travels, but like to read. Because anywhere you can get Wi-Fi, you can go on Amazon, buy another book. And there's just, you could be on a 12-hour flight across the Atlantic, and you could, you know, read 3 books without ever, like, digging through your bag or anything. Carry those 3 books would take up a lot more space. I mean, the new big thing, but just a normal Kindle is so small. Like, they're thinner than, like, my smartphone. You know, they're bigger dimensions-wise, but they're thinner. And I would dare say, holding this and having held another Kindle recently, I feel like it can't be much heavier. It might not even be as heavy because they're really, really lightweight. The battery lasts forever if the Wi-Fi is off. And it took me a little getting used to. I read like partial books, probably like a dozen of them, before I really got into being able to read. And what I did is I read a series of books that I really enjoyed, that I knew once I started I wouldn't be able to put them down, because I've read them before over the past 20 years. I've read them a couple times. And I just know they like draw me right in. It's a 5-book series. By the time I was done, I was totally used to it. Because the complaint I get from most people is like, oh, I want to feel the pages in my hand. Which is nice, and I have a lot of nostalgia around that. But it doesn't take away, I mean, the main thing about reading, you know, people that read for pleasure and read fiction, is kind of that escape that it gives you, you know. And it's no different if you're reading it on a Kindle than if you're reading it on a normal book. So, I mean, there's a lot of pluses and minuses. This article goes over a lot of just sort of points. You know, where you can find books, print books, you got to go to a library, a bookstore, etc. But with digital books, you can just download them, usually directly from the device. You know, you can use the device to go to whatever store. If it's Nook, it would be Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Amazon. You know, books people could scribble notes in. Kindle, so you can put in notes. It's a lot easier with the HD, but even the other ones you can put in notes. You know, there's a lot of stuff just about the merging of the digital world. You know, because there's a lot of stuff, you know, I mean, if you're talking about working more digitally, you know, instead of like writing a letter to an author, you can, you know, go to their Facebook page and post on it, and they reply right away. Ebooks are much easier to get self-published because all you need to do is get it together. You don't have to worry about, like, once it's formatted correctly and it's in the proper setup, you don't have to worry about finding someone who's going to put all the money into, you know, taking this and actually publishing hard copies of it. Once you get it done, you can make an infinite amount of copies, because that's the way digital media works. So, I mean, I think it's obviously the future. I don't think normal books will ever go away entirely. I don't think that's really, I mean, it's possible, but it would take a really long time, because there is something nostalgic about it. And there's something neat about going into a bookstore, and I'll still go into bookstores. I won't purchase the book, but I'll go there, like, look around, and then I'll figure out maybe what I want, and then I'll go find it digitally.
I think that Amazon, well, not so much Amazon, because they're not a brick and mortar store, but like Barnes and Noble has kind of embraced ebooks, which you would think that bookstores wouldn't want to, because of that exact thing where your customers actually just come in, they browse, you know, they might get something to drink in the little cafe that you have there, but they don't actually purchase anything from you. They end up just going home and purchasing an ebook or something like that of the book that they're looking for. But that's why, like Amazon, Barnes and Noble has theirs is the Nook, right?
Correct.
And the Kindle is for Amazon. And so I think Barnes and Noble's kind of strategy is, okay, well, we're going to do a Barnes and Noble ebook, so we'll set things up, we'll get people in on the licensing for that, and then when they purchase things, we're still getting our money and going around it that way. So that I was initially like, I would think, well, bookstores are kind of go the way of the internet, and you're going to have less brick and mortar stores for people to go into. But I guess it really depends on how much money that they can get for ebooks versus, if they can still be able to support that brick and mortar store for that purpose of just being a footprint, then they won't go away.
I think it's like you were saying. I think it's definitely better for smaller authors because the way the bookstores work now, or at least selling your book works. Like if you publish a book and you have hard copies of it, and you sell 10,000 copies to Barnes & Noble, that's how many they buy for resale at their stores. And after X amount of time has passed, and they still have 8,000 copies left, you actually have to buy them back. So if you are someone who is like, a starting out author, and maybe your book isn't going to be like, part of the Oprah Winfrey Club or whatever, like you don't have to worry so much about you can't buy back digital copies. It's just you sell however many you sell. So I think that's really good for smaller authors. I think the integration of libraries into it is really good because I have not bought very many books in the past years because I'm so into the library. Like I just think there's this huge resource of free books. Like I don't understand why people buy so many. And now that a lot of libraries have integrated that you can digitally check out books from the library. You can check out books and have it directly downloaded onto your Kindle for X amount of time, and you can renew it and stuff like that, which I think is really great. But I do still like to go to the library and look around because like browsing something online, a category, is not the same as going and viewing the books and picking them up and sort of flipping through them. I do still like books. I just got a Kindle, and I'm still kind of working through my first book on it just because I'm lame and not reading very much right now. But I like actually that it displays percentages because it's sort of like, instead of it being like, oh, I've read this many pages, it's like, oh, I'm 45% in now, I'm 50% in now, and I think that's cool. So I'm, for the most part, a fan of ebooks.
So the next thing that ebooks need to do is not only have percentages, but you have to get achievements for each one of them. You've read for 4 hours straight. I have to go to the bathroom achievement.
One of the coolest parts about well, you can read while going to the bathroom. In fact, 15% of all my reading. No. One of the coolest things about these e-readers, or I use the Kindle tablet on my app, or the Kindle app on my tablet, is if you come across a word you don't recognize for some reason, or you understand it in context, but you're like, what is the actual definition? If it's a touch screen, you can just long press it, and then the definition will just pop right up, which is much better than from a learning perspective, an educational perspective, than always having to have a dictionary next to you, or a notepad where maybe you write them down, or whatever people would do. Come across that word, long press it, bam, comes right up, which I love. And I like the percentages. They are, I think they're integrating, or they have integrated, page numbers for some books. And I don't remember, because I read a lot about this recently because of this podcast. I think it's in textbooks. They're going to be integrating page numbers in there too, so that it's easy to reference. If if they say, go to, page whatever, you can actually go to that page, even though it'd still be measured by percentages. This is the information that would be in the hard copy version, that page.
But it sounds like it would be for books, not necessarily where the percentage is any good for you. In a book where you will read it from the beginning to the end, textbooks, you don't really do that. Textbooks, you buy, and then it sits, and then you go to class, and then you take the tests, and then 4 years after you finish the class, you go, oh yeah, I forgot to open this book.
Yeah.
So, I actually don't. I don't own an e-reader. My wife does. She reads stuff on there. She buys books. I have my cell phone, which it can function obviously as an e-reader, and I have the apps for it, both Amazon's and Barnes and Noble's. But I haven't even gotten into like even borrowing from the library digitally. I know that our library will do it, but I haven't actually gotten it set up, or I noticed it when I was there last time, and I went onto the screen and it wanted me to sign in, and I hadn't set anything up, and I didn't want to stand there with other people, behind me wanting to actually use the kiosk correctly, and not some idiot like me standing in front of the kiosk going, I don't understand what I'm doing. So I'll have to sign up for it, but I'm a little reluctant, but not because of any kind of nostalgia. Just like I don't read a lot, and for a while I really enjoyed getting books on tape because I have a 10 to 20 minute drive to work, which isn't that long, but it is long enough to get through a few pages of a book. And I mean, I wouldn't listen to a lot of like fiction books. That I would read a lot, or listen to whatever, a lot more nonfiction stuff. So for me, like I've thought about getting like an Audible.com subscription, where I can just listen to it as opposed to read it. But I'd really like an ebook that could also read to me. I don't think it would be as good though as like a book on tape where you have a human reading it. Yeah, I mean it would be.
Yeah, it's a very robot voice.
Yeah, so it probably wouldn't be as good, but I don't know. I mean, like I'm not entirely sold on the ebook thing, but not because of anything like bad. It's just probably because I don't read books in general very often. Like I like to listen or watch things. I'm more of a visual type of person in that regard, and so I don't sit down and read for long periods of time.
Well, I think one of the issues too that's been brought up with ebooks is the idea that they don't actually belong to you. Like you buy them and they're available on this device that you own, but at any time, Amazon or Barnes and Noble could revoke your right to them and erase them off your Kindle or your Nook or whatever. And I know a lot of people have been raising a stink about that, but I mean, realistically, it's not much different from downloading an MP3 from iTunes. So I don't think it's necessarily that big of a deal. It just depends on if, Amazon starts pulling rights, which I don't think it would happen, but if it did, I think then the shitstorm could happen.
Well, that's because, like, those books, when you purchase them, they're saved on a cloud, right? They're not saved on the device. You don't download the book to the device.
Yeah, if you want to read it, you do.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Like your collection, like if you had bought a whole bunch of books, they're in the cloud, but you can pull them down whenever you want onto the device.
Okay.
That way you can read offline.
Right. It's basically the same sort of licensing stuff we talked about in regards to the Xbox One. Just the, who really owns this versus that. I guess that's one benefit of an actual hard, an actual book versus a e-reader is the fact that once you bought that book, you own it. You can actually resell it, which you can't do obviously with an ebook. But that goes back to the licensing thing. But as we brought up with the Xbox One, I mean, software, which really an ebook is, it's just software. It's not really a book. It's just a collection of zeros and ones. Software has just been that way forever. It's just a license that you get to use it for however long the company decides that they want to let you use it.
Yeah.
I guess that's sort of like a little bit of my reluctance with ebooks is that they don't feel permanent. Like a book in the hand it's yours. I mean, you can rip it up, you can write in it, you can do whatever you want. It's your book, you can keep it forever. Digital things just don't seem as permanent to me.
And they're not in a lot of ways, depending on, I know there are programs where on the Kindle, anything that's on, you can extract it. Never messed around with it, but you can take it, and then you can take that and you could save that on your computer, where Amazon wouldn't be able to take it away from you. But I don't feel like those steps should have to be taken. That's why I really don't like iTunes. Because if you have all this stuff, I don't know, I think this has changed, but back in the day, you have all that stuff you bought and you've downloaded on your computer, and that computer, gets dropped in a pool and everything's gone. Apple was, I don't know if it's the same anymore, but they at least used to be, hey, cool, buy it all again. We'd love that. I think that's changed, but it always kind of put me off, because it shouldn't be that way. I bought it. I should be able to download it as many times as I want.
Yeah, I think the last time that we brought that up, we actually got yelled at by one of our listeners because of the fact that isn't the way that Apple does it anymore.
Yeah.
That Apple.
But it shows.
Cloud.
And we talked about this stuff in one of the early podcasts we did. How that is kind of, it's a difficult place to be in as a consumer when you're buying something that you feel like maybe if something goes wrong, I don't get to keep it anymore. Like they can just take it away, or it, it's a double-edged sword though, because while you have, no matter where you are, if you've bought 100 Kindle books, you could be at home on your Wi-Fi and you can download it, or you could be at the free Wi-Fi at an airport in Phoenix and download it, and you don't have to carry around your 100 books with you, but they're all right there, and that's really, really nice. But you definitely don't want to spend, even if it's only $10 a book, $1,000 to get those 100 books, and then something happened and them all get taken away from you. That'd be,
One of the things
that's a whole conversation on digital media.
One of the things that I guess I don't get about ebooks is how expensive a lot of them are. I would probably be more willing to get involved if a book that, if I buy it as a book, is $14 or $15, but if I buy it as an ebook, it's $1 or $1.50. And I guess I don't understand, or at least I don't find the arguments compelling for why it's okay for them to charge that much. But there are some new releases that are $25, as much as an actual hard copy book, or just under the price of a hard copy book for the ebook. And I guess I just don't understand. Yes, you have to compensate the writer for writing, and you have to compensate the publisher for publishing, even though there isn't as much actual publishing. Their publisher isn't fronting as much money to print the book. They're doing more advertising the book and getting it up there in Google and things like that in order to get people to know about it. Maybe going out and putting radio spots and TV spots for books as well. But I guess there's no, it doesn't cost anything to reproduce an ebook, except for the few moments of time it takes to, Control C, Control V type thing, to copy it.
I think the drop from $15 to $1 is unrealistic. But what is the publishing cost and the shipping cost? Is that $3 per book? Is that $5 per book? That should be taken back on. You know what I mean? That it should be less expensive. Not by that large of a margin, because going from $15 to $1 or $2 that's a huge jump. You know what I mean? It's a huge, huge drop. But Amazon has deals every day, dollar books every day, and it just changes up. But it's usually new authors or maybe older authors, but it's not going to be, the new whoever, it's not going to be the new big author, their book for $1.
Well, I was just going to say that
pricings are a concern.
Yeah, it's kind of like where Xbox and their downloadable content. If you want the downloadable content, or you want this game from the arcade and you want it today, then it's going to cost you 1,600 points or whatever. But 4 months from now, it might be on sale for 25% off, but you've lost the 4 months worth of game time or having it immediately. I guess it would be nice to see. I don't know. I'm probably the wrong person to talk about because I'm not really into ebooks. So I mean, for me, it's I
Well,
don't. Even if they probably dropped it to $1, I probably wouldn't be buying them anyway because I don't buy them right now. My wife buys them, but the ones she buys are only $2 and $3. So, I
yeah.
mean, to me,
Well,
that seems reasonable for an ebook.
it's a valid point, though. You know, they're still the same price as a book that you go to the store for, and they're making that much more profit off us because they're not publishing a book, they're not shipping the book, they're not having the liability of having to buy back the books if they don't get sold, et cetera, whatever else out there. So they should be less expensive, but I think it's probably a reasonable business decision to not make them less expensive, because if they do, people are going to, you know, flee from the bookstores that much more quickly. You know, well, why am I going to spend $4 extra for every book when I can just buy a Kindle or a Nook, start saving that money by the end of the year? Since I read a lot, I would have, you know, made up the difference in the book, and then I can, or buying the device, and now from now on, all my books are cheaper. I'm going to save money next year, et cetera, et cetera.
I wonder though if they charge like about the same for books, because because the Kindle is actually really affordable. So I wonder if they maybe like charge less for the Kindle, sort of like when you get like a 2-year contract with your phone. I wonder if they charge less with the assumption that you'll probably make up for any money they're losing on the actual sale with ebooks that you purchase through them.
I see what you're saying. So you're saying that they're charging, yeah, because I know that I think Kindle actually just dropped their price on one of their ones, not the new HD Ultra whatever.
Yeah.
But their other one just dropped down to 89, $90. I mean, it's really reasonable now.
It's probably the Paper Touch or the Paperwhite. But realistically, the Kindle Fire is at the right price point of that type of tablet. So it's really not, an inexpensive tablet, but for what it does and its specs, it's pretty much right there in that kind of bargain level. Strava Max.
Indeed. This is not where you can't buy ebooks here.
No.
No,
but
you can't buy ebooks.
Not looking for them.
But that's not what you would be looking for if you were coming to StravaMax.com. STRAVAMAX.com. You would be looking for jewelry, obviously. And no, I didn't write that. That was just off the cuff. All right, so there you go. Ooh, those are like butterflies. Pretty. Okay, so Strava Max, the young lady who made our all of our graphics, also makes the jewelry for Strava Max, and pretty stuff. Take a look at it. If you like something, order it. My wife's ordered several. She likes them. James said he was going to order a bunch of nose rings. I don't know. Right, James?
Belly button rings.
Belly button rings.
Nose rings. It's ridiculous. Actually, I don't know if they have any of that stuff, guys. They have more conventional.
Yeah, it's pretty normal.
I haven't looked all the way through, so check it out, because it could be very wrong. All
right. Anything else anybody wants to hit on ebooks, or do you want to move on to some of our articles? James, you had another article, didn't you?
I did, and it is about ebooks. It's about it was an article in the USA Today, or on USA Today, if you will. Let me get back to the title of it. Death of the Textbook. And they're talking about how there's a couple companies who are beginning to produce their textbooks in hard copy and in digital format. Digital formats are much cheaper. Looking towards the future of it, they can also integrate videos and quizzes that will give you your grade right away. You don't have to go to the back and check, and a lot of other things. Interactive, a lot of more interactive aspects to these textbooks. It was really interesting, because everybody knows how expensive textbooks are. It's ridiculous. So any price cut at all is going to be fantastic. But the problem is that you need a piece of technology like this tablet or a laptop to be able to utilize it. So we're kind of getting there with more people have these handy. but it's a very interesting article. They go into a lot of different aspects of it. And I mean, I think it is the future, but again, it's reliant on people having this technology, and not everyone who's been to school does. So although it's progress, it puts a limit on other people. So I'm kind of on the fence about it.
Well, I do know that a lot of schools have started doing things where high schools, colleges, where they give you laptops, tablets, things like that. It's part of the cost associated with taking classes. I know, for example, my alma mater, Judson, actually, for one of their master's programs, you get a laptop at the beginning of it. I don't know any details on how great it is, but you do. So, but there are lots of schools, high schools included, that are starting to implement technology within the classroom more. So, yeah.
Well, and I know that, like, my roommate, she's in college right now, and she rents textbooks instead of buying them through, like, various websites. She usually, just sort of compares and sees which one. But a lot of times, if her class start date is kind of cutting it close to when the book is set to deliver, it will give her access to a digital copy of it until her book arrives, so that she's not left without a textbook in the interim.
Yeah.
I have access to those too. They're called torrents.
Which we do not condone.
I don't know about the textbook thing is cool, and I'm glad that there are ways to cut the cost of textbooks. And textbooks are definitely expensive, but I keep all of my textbooks that I buy, believe it or not. Like, I don't resell them or anything, because I like having a whole bunch of textbooks sitting on my shelf in my library.
Hipster.
Those are some very expensive coffee table books, Justin.
Yeah, like over on the stairs going to upstairs is like a biology textbook that I got for a biology class I took a few years ago, and it's like there's that and a chemistry one. Just, I don't know, and I never ever look at them again, but I like having them. I know I'm weird.
It's all good. You can keep your textbooks. No one's judging you.
I don't think that's true. Anyway. So, but yes, bringing down the cost of textbooks is nice, and it would be nice to have a PDF. It's nice to have the book, but to have a PDF copy of it would also be beneficial.
And I mean, we're talking beyond PDF, because we're talking about a lot of interactivity and things like that, which could really, it can bring like that part of education, the textbook part of education, to a whole other level. But there's an upside and a downside at this stage. I mean, because if you're adding a tablet or a laptop into what it costs to take classes, you're talking minimum $400, maximum, say $2,000 for anything that's not ridiculous. So that's adding a whole nother level to education. So maybe it's a wash. So maybe if you add that in and the prices of the textbooks dropping down, to half or a third of what they are, maybe it ends up being a wash in the long run. And you also get a tablet and a laptop, so that could be a win overall. But yeah, I mean, I think it is the future. I think it's definitely going to be a bit of a bumpy road for people for a little while, though. So I think there's some more articles.
We do indeed. Sequoia, do you have an article you want to?
I do. Mine's on a completely different note.
That's okay. As long as it's tech or science related, then we're still in the realm.
I actually found an article on the Huffington Post. And it is about how a geologist has been tracking seismic activity around Loch Ness, and has actually said that a lot of the sightings coincide with seismic activity underneath the loch. That it's not like a fault zone or anything, but that there is like recurrent seismic activity, and the bubbles coming up through the lake could be the reason why there have been so many Nessie sightings over the years. And I thought that was, it doesn't 100% debunk it, but I think it's interesting, and mythological creatures are usually good for conversation, so.
As well, see, taking the other side of it, I would say it proves that there's because what it is the Nessie is whatever she's doing, she's like pounding around on the bottom of the lock, and that's what's causing it. I mean,
indigestion, dinosaur indigestion.
Yeah, I'm like, done. Nessie is real, proven. Sequoia just proved it.
We've got a microphone that can drop.
Yeah, it's a last nail in the coffin. We're done. It's over.
Either that, or she's swimming around and an earthquake happens, and she's like, "Oh crap, gotta go!" So she pops up to the front really fast.
Yeah, she's probably like, "Dude, earthquake, that sucks."
I was hiding in my cave.
So yeah. No, well, that's kind of cool. I wonder.
So I'll take it, no believers, and go ahead.
So I'm wondering if it's related to some sort of like geothermal activity, if there's gas bubbles or something involved, and then he's reading such on his seismic activity stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there have been, and the sightings are not just pictures and bubbles and stuff. Right. A lot of it's been like sonar and stuff like that. But a lot of them are, foreign objects coming up out of the water, and he was just saying that, like, it would be like gas emissions, which would cause, large bubbles on the top, which could look like humps,
okay.
and are actually just gas emissions. So.
Or it's aliens. Maybe aliens. They crashed into the lock. That's probably what we're seeing.
So what's one of the articles? You got, Justin?
I've got this one from because brilliant me. My way of trying to find articles on science and technology was just do a Google search for science and technology news, and so I found this website called PopSci.
So you went way out of the box.
Yeah, I was just like whatever. No, and it's an article about. They were using the capability of like lizards and amphibians and their ability to regrow severed like tails and limbs, and so this scientist took they took some of the like the like genes from them and were using it. They used stem cells in order to kind of create like a structure for it to kind of grow onto, and actually had they actually have in mice, not rats, but in mice, they actually got it to regrow bone and tissue without any natural stem cells from the mouse being used. And so while this, obviously this is only something that's been shown to happen in mice, it does actually present a good opportunity for in the future. It's very possible that we'll be able to regrow limbs, amputees, and things like that, instead of giving, saying, okay, well, here's your prosthesis for the rest of your life. We actually might, in the future, be able to regrow arms and legs and things like that. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Did the mouse afterwards, since it had lizard DNA, want to eat itself? That is neat. It's kind of scary, and it's like the beginning of a sci-fi movie that has Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. But it's kind of neat.
I feel like that'd be really painful. Like, I don't know if I'm just thinking of like the Harry Potter movies when they'd like when he grows back his bones and he's like screaming. Like, that was like the first place my mind went. But I would imagine it'd be kind of like painful. It'd at
least be really itchy.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool, and I'm sure it'd be less than not having your limb for the rest of your life. But I'm imagining that process, and I feel like it'd be really uncomfortable.
Yeah, like I'm looking through it, and I guess the stuff regrows proteins and things like that actually make up the bones and the tissue and everything. So I don't know I don't know if it would be any more painful, I suppose, than like growing a scab, because that's, to a certain extent, when you are regrowing skin underneath your scab, it's not painful. It's itchy, like James had said. I mean, it does itch. But I guess, nerves are just cells too. So it's just a matter of growing those tissues and those protein strands and those things in order to create them. But once they hook up to your network, your nervous system, I don't know. I guess itchy is probably pretty accurate. I don't know. I always thought it was cool because back when I was a gung ho sort of militant sort of atheist, one of the things I always used to argue about was, if God is real, then how come he doesn't heal amputees? And so I thought that was cool that, here's science is going to actually be able to heal amputees, hopefully in the very near future. And so that was what I thought was kind of cool. So I'm not as...
What was your second article, Goya?
My other one was about how there
Bigfoot?
are... Yes, actually it was about Bigfoot.
So you're going after all of these, like,
No.
all of the scientific sort of... What is that called? Shoot.
Xenobiology.
Xenobiology, thank you. Yeah, or cryptozoology.
Cryptozoology, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's actually not about Bigfoot. It's actually about talking about how all over the country there are all these court cases coming up about whether or not law enforcement should be allowed to use cell tower locational tracking in court cases. So, like, if you are someone who has committed a crime and you are going to court for it, should the number one, should cops be able to use the GPS tracking on your phone's history to use that in the court case? And number two, should they be able to use your GPS? Should they be able to obtain your GPS tracking signals history without a warrant?
Ah, okay. The second one I could see definitely as sort of a case to kind of argue rights. The first one, I don't know what that would really benefit them. Because I would think, obviously I'm not a lawyer, but I would think that would be easy to argue. All that proves is my... What?
Circumstantial evidence.
Yeah. All that would really prove is that my cell phone was at the location. It kind of looks bad, but at the same time, it's easy for me to say, oh, I lost my cell phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Or something like that, or I haven't seen my cell phone for a day and a half.
But I could see how, like, especially with the two in conjunction, like, let's say they're, they know you've committed a crime and they're trying to track you down and they use your cell phone to track you down. You can't exactly say, well, I didn't have my cell phone yesterday. That's about as, solid as, like, the weed's not mine, like, it's the same type of thing.
The guy just told me to hang on to it. Yeah, I guess if you're suspected of a crime, that's reasonable suspicion for them to get warrants to search your home and your car and things like that. So it seems like a warrant. They don't just... Ideally, the police don't just say, oh, I'm going to suspect this person of a crime, therefore let's get a warrant. They have to have reasonable suspicion to do certain things. Now, are there police officers who don't necessarily always follow that? Sure, that takes place. But in general, if they're getting a warrant, I guess I would say that they would have to have a warrant for something like that.
Well, so that's the thing, is there is no, like, standard, because, it's relatively new technology, and especially with the way laws get passed, it's, it's still catching up to the technology. So that's sort of the problem, is that there really is no precedent for any of this, because it's all new. So they don't really know what the laws are. So, cops and, civilians are all doing things, and then it's coming to court, and then it's becoming an argument because there's no precedent, there's no law written in the book saying they can or they can't.
I feel like, I mean, I would definitely argue for them needing a warrant. It just seems like it falls within that category of something that they shouldn't just be able to get. I mean, I don't know. They're being able to use it. I mean, it seems like a double-edged sword, because if I decide to commit a crime and just leave my phone at home, is that my alibi? See, my GPS never left my house. I must have been at home asleep.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, so I mean, it's, you know, it's, if it works one way, it should be able to work both, and that doesn't hold up. So I don't know. That is kind of complicated. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Justin, we got a couple more minutes. Do you have
we do.
Final article?
We do. Yep. So this is one of the other articles I thought was cool, and it was also at popsci.com. So you know, you see how much work.
Next week when our topic is not science and tech.
It'll be political and social, and I'll just go to paulsock.com.
Paul Sock? I wouldn't.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea.
Or Pole Sock, whatever. We're wasting time. All right.
Do not search polsock.com. I don't know what it is, but you probably don't want to be there.
Well, as popular as we are, it's probably now a website.
Or
it's a hashtag.
Getting it right now.
Hashtag polsock.com. Anyway, so in France, they've, because the French, you know the French. They've got this great idea where they are going to heat this new apartment complex using the warmth of human bodies.
The Matrix.
Yeah, right. I know, right? They're going to hook them up, and yeah. No, actually, what it is in their underground, their subway system, beneath where this apartment complex is, people obviously wait in the stations, waiting for the trains to show up. The trains obviously give off heat and everything like that as well. But while they're waiting, they have heat that just comes off of their body, and that heat is being captured by whatever, magic, for all intents and purposes.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's
accurate reporting.
Thank you. So they have these heat exchangers that push the warm air that is produced just by normal heat that every human being gives off, and they say that it will be enough to actually heat 17 apartments in this complex. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Like, science is awesome, magic is better, but I think this is actual science. But I don't, like, the body heat of, like, a random collection of subway passengers does not seem like something I just want pumped into my house.
I don't think it's quite as direct as, like, there's a tube going from the subway station to, like, a vent on your house. I would imagine that there is more involved in that.
I would hope there's some sort of odor filtration.
That was the first thing that I thought is, oh man, you would think that your heat would smell awful.
I feel like they'd get really excited over people who are like on drugs and their like body heat is like super high because they're tweaking. And I think the other thing is, I think, there's eventually going to be somebody who's like, I didn't give you my consent to use my body heat for heating your apartment complex, so. That could be
$75.
Yeah, are you going to compensate me for me giving you my body heat to warm your apartment complex?
That is an interesting sort of statement to have. I mean, how much right do I have to the heat that my body gives off? I mean, is it mine, or is it something else? Like, is
it public property once it's emitted from my body?
Yeah.
If not, there should be a surcharge when you go into places that are being air conditioned, because you're negatively affecting your air conditioning. So that's a double-edged sword, people. Okay. Seriously, you go in a Jewel and it's like, how long are you going to be here? Well, that's going to be $5.
But then during the winter, you could charge.
It's true.
Yeah. I think we've made a multi-million-dollar idea. From now on, before I go into stores in the middle of the winter, I will be going, I'd like to speak to your manager, please. You will have to pay me for the time that your heater doesn't have to run because of the body heat I'm giving off. Put it in my hand, please. That'll be 14 cents. 14 cents, and I will be here for 17 hours.
Nice. That is commitment.
Yeah.
Found yourself a new full-time job.
That's quite a full-time job.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I think we've run out of time. Because James only looked up ebooks articles. Don't blame him. We were kind of unclear on what the new rules are for how we're doing things. So if you guys
unclear.
Yes, if you guys like that kind of format, which I kind of like it. I don't know about the other two, but you know.
Yeah, no, I thought it was good.
Yeah, it works very well. So if you guys like the format, just let us know on Facebook. Let us, send us out a tweet, whatever. Speak to us, people. Speak to us. Tell us good things. Tell us bad things. Tell us how much you hate it, how much you love it. Tell us jokes. Whatevs. Come up with better jokes than I come up with. No, I'm not going to say the one that I had in the pre-show. You missed it. If you weren't here, you missed it. We opened it up early. You could have bore witness. Yep. Half
That's
hour before the show starts. That's probably good for your
public image, though.
Yeah, well, honestly, I don't even know if this show is good for my public image. 31 podcasts in, I'd say it's a wash. So, anyway, next week we will be talking about something political/social. So, I've got some things in mind. I will chat with the other two for after the show. You can also be part of the after show after the show. So thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading our podcast. Thank you for purchasing our app that is on Amazon, right, James? Yep. It is on Amazon. Eventually we're supposed to have an iOS app, right? Yep, I'm in the middle of procrastinating that. Okay. So you can also get all of our podcasts on Libsyn on the YouTube page that is linked to my YouTube just because I'm lazy and haven't set anything else up. Follow us on Facebook. They always post up there too. Yep. And if you're friends with us on Facebook, also the posts are on our Facebook feeds. So there you go. Next week will be something political social. Thank you for joining us. And let me push buttons here so that we finish off with the right screen cap. There we go. All right, guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye.